Twisted Mansion was a really odd course to put a run together for. When I first watched some high-level runs to figure out the strats, I thought to myself, well, looks like there's really only going to be one problematic strat to learn here. Turns out though, that a lot of the things I thought were going to be really easy actually ended up being some of the most difficult parts of the run to figure out. Welcome to part 7 of Basic Training, where we're going to cover everything you need to know about Twisted Mansion on 150cc. As always, we're going to be covering the recommended builds, mushroom strats, and other advanced tips and tricks to help you start mastering the course. We're also going to cover alternate strategies that you can use in place of some of the more complicated parts of the track, as well as shroomless strategies, which are going to be more generally applicable to online races. If you find this type of content useful or entertaining, don't forget to drop a like and comment to let me know. Also make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can stay up to date with my latest videos, since I'm going to be uploading a new tutorial every week. With all that out of the way, let's explore the haunted recesses of Twisted Mansion. The recommended build for this course is going to be Waluigi, Mr. Scooty, Azure Rollers, and Paper Glider. This build has a ground speed of 3, an acceleration of 4.75, and a mini turbo of 4.75. Twisted Mansion has a lot of places to build up mini turbos, so it makes sense that we would use a build that prioritizes mini turbo over ground speed. The world record actually goes even more all in on the mini turbo and swaps out Waluigi with Lemmy and Mr. Scooty with Bitty Buggy. This build has a ground speed of 0.75 and a mini turbo of 5.75, which is the highest in the game. As per usual, I don't recommend using the world record build in this instance because in order to take advantage of that insane mini turbo stat, you have to create many more opportunities to build up mini turbos using advanced counter hopping strategies that are really difficult to execute properly. Before we get started, just a couple things to point out. The build that I use in this video is King Boo, Bitty Buggy, Azure Rollers, and Paper Glider. This build has a ground speed of 3.5, an acceleration of 4.75, and a mini turbo of 5. So a slightly higher mini turbo at the cost of ground speed in comparison to the recommended build. So what happened was, I actually ran the track a bunch with Waluigi, and then I remembered that the league that I'm in specified that we need to use King Boo for this week. I ended up getting a pretty solid time with him, and I didn't want to go back and re-record with Waluigi. This is because there's one part of this track that's really difficult to learn, and also incredibly annoying to execute even after you've learned it. But yeah, just wanted to point out that the builds have really similar stat distribution, so everything I'll say in this video applies to the recommended build as well as the one that you'll see in the video. That's enough of that though, let's take a look at the track. After you get the startup boost, hit up the right hand side of the track to grab the first 2 coins. You can actually trick off the wavy sections of the track if you press the trick button right at the peak of the waves. This can be somewhat difficult to time properly, so what you can do instead is just shake your controller. This acts like kind of a trick buffer. And the nice thing about it is that it'll cause you to trick if possible, but it won't make you hop, which is likely to mess you up if you don't actually get the trick. After you grab the coins, start a left drift to take the shortcut. You don't want to use your mushroom until right around when you get to the off-road. This is because hitting this shortcut requires that you take kind of a long racing line, and if you use your mushroom too early, you'll hit the off-road on the other side of the track and lose a bunch of speed. Once we enter the underwater section, there's about a 95% chance that your run is going straight to hell. It all starts with this first Ultra Mini Turbo around the hairpin. It looks simple enough, but believe me when I say that without someone explaining exactly what's going on, it's a huge pain in the ass to figure out. The TLDR version is that you want to hold pretty hard right drifting angles around the corners of the hairpin and wide drifting angles around the straight parts. Now here's a more in-depth explanation of how it all goes. After coming out of the mushroom shortcut, you start a drift. You should have enough time to build up a mini turbo before entering the underwater section. Release and immediately start a right drift. Then you hold a hard left on the joystick to keep as wide a drift angle as possible, just until you're in line to get the coin that's on screen right now. Then, right before you get to the coin, start holding a hard right, but basically until just after you grab the coin. You're really only holding a hard right for just a fraction of a second here, at which point you go back to holding hard left. This serves 2 purposes. Probably the most important reason is that holding a hard right on the joystick allows you to build up mini turbos more quickly. The other reason is that it allows you to keep a really tight line around the hairpin, and holding left on the joystick helps you keep that line around the bend. So again, hard left until just before you grab the coin, then a hard right until right after you pass the coin, and then hard left again. Then a little bit before getting the second coin, you start a soft drift to the right. The soft drift instead of the hard drift is really important here because it will allow you to get a UMT without forcing you to take a really bad line. You can do a harder drift angle, but then you're going to want to compensate by widening your drift angle just a little bit longer around the hairpin turn. Just know that if you take the turn this way, that your next turn is going to be taken in a slightly suboptimal line. Alright, so now we've built up the UMT. Thank God we're out of the... Oh, wait, what? Dude, are you kidding me? Alright, well, I'm gonna do my best to explain what you just watched here. If you watch my advanced tips and tricks guide, you'll know that sometimes it's faster to do a mini turbo off a ramp and then hold a down and left or down and right angle on the joystick than it is to trick. This is called vectoring and shows up all over the place on 150cc. Now for a super high level explanation of what exactly is going on here, yes, bonking into the wall slows you down, but the UMT and vectoring are so fast that it actually overcompensates for the speed decrease that happens from bonking into the wall. So why do we even need to bonk into the wall in the first place? Surely we can build up a UMT without needing to do that. Well, yes we can, but only by taking a god-awful line. And don't call me Shirley. So, how do we actually do this strat now? Well, it all starts with how you took the hairpin turn prior. As soon as you build up the UMT, immediately start a left drift. You soft drift around this corner to build up an SMT, and then when you release it, do a quick right hop for alignment. Now here's probably the dumbest looking crap in the entire game. At the point where the paths split, you'll notice there's a horizontal wooden divider on the ground separating the main track from the two split paths. As soon as you pass it, you want to do not one, not two, but 3 alternating counter hops before starting your left drift. I asked around in the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe speedrunning Discord, and apparently this is necessary to keep good alignment around the bend. Now I can't reiterate enough just how important it is to start these 3 alternating counter hops as soon as you pass the divider, not a moment sooner and not a moment later. If you don't time it just right, the way the track is laid out, it's really likely that you'll end up hovering in the air for a bunch of time, or else run face first into the wall, both of which are just the worst. This strat can be done with a single counter hop, but your alignment around the bend will be just a little bit suboptimal. Let's just take a look at the underwater section, starting from when we very first enter it, up until we pass the counter hops. Now let's bonk into some walls, shall we? The idea here is that once you've done the 3 counter hops and started your left drift, you want to hug the left wall kind of tightly, and upon grabbing the first coin here, start holding kind of a hard left angle on the joystick. The goal here is to be as close to parallel with the left wall as possible so that when you bonk the wall, you don't lose all your forward momentum by running into the wall. Try and bonk right around when you get to the orange boost pad, and again right before the glider ramp. Hopefully you've built up a UMT by this point, but if you've only got an SMT, it's still faster than tricking off the ramp, so you'll still be in good shape here. Anyways, after you come off the glider, start holding a down and right angle on the joystick to get the vectoring going, and then land on top of the walkway at the end of the courtyard. Before going any further, full disclosure that I really don't do the strat particularly well here, since you're supposed to be able to grab some coins in the air before landing on the walkway. This is easily one of the most frustrating things that I've tried to learn how to do in this game, so if you don't get it right away, don't be discouraged. It will take time to figure it out. One more point of clarification before we finish up with the track here. I'm not 100% on whether or not the glider here is supposed to be a low glider or not, but I've found that it's pretty hard for me to get enough height with a low glider to land on the walkway without running into it. So I'd say just don't do a low glider here, just to be safe. Alright, let's finish up the track. Before landing on the walkway, start holding ZR so that you can drift as soon as you land. Soft drift around the turn here, and then widen your drift angle just a bit to avoid bonking into the wall. By the time you get to the 2 coins here, you should already have an SMT built up. Before grabbing the coins, start holding another soft drift angle to the left, and then once you grab the coins, widen your drift angle again. The reason for this is that what we're going to want to do is build up a UMT before getting into the hammer section, but we don't want to be too far to the left when we get to it because of the fact that the next turn is kind of a hard right and we want to actually be going through the hammer. So once you build up the UMT, You release and start a right drift. Try to hang out on the bricks so that you can go in between the hammer and the track. Tighten your drift angle just a little bit before going through the hammer to help you build up an SMT, and then once you do that, release, do 2 counter hops to the left, and do a right drift and charge up a mini turbo. Laps 2 and 3 are more or less identical to lap 1, so let's see how all this looks in a full run. Couple of things to note. I take the right-hand path every time. On lap 1, that's because you can get both coins and 2 tricks off the carpet section. On laps 2 and 3, it's mostly for convenience given that I'm usually pretty far to the right-hand side of the track after doing the 2 counter hop mini turbo strat. Like the trolleys in Toad Harbor, the carpet waves operate on global cycles, and it just so happens that on lap 2, I'm also able to get 2 tricks off the carpets. However, on lap 3, it would probably be faster for me to try and get to the left-hand side of the track and get 2 tricks off the carpets there, because if you notice, in my run, I'm only able to get 1 trick on lap 3. Before we close out the video, let's quickly talk about some alternate strategies you can use here. First and foremost, for the hairpin turn, you can take it with an SMT, but hopefully after watching this video, you shouldn't need to do that because once you know the technique, it's really not that hard to do. It's figuring out what the technique is supposed to be that's kind of the problem. As for the split path counter hop nonsense, if you just take it the way your brain is probably telling you to take it, that is, just drift around the turn and build up an SMT, it is actually quite a bit slower. From the limited amount of testing I did, I think it loses around half a second, maybe a little bit more over the optimal strat. But it's infinitely easier to do, so take that for what it's worth. Finally, if you're running the track without mushrooms, then for the first hairpin turn inside the mansion, start your left drift a little on the outside so that you can cut the left side of the track super close and be set up for a better line going into the underwater section. And that's it. That's everything you need to know about Twisted Mansion on 150cc. I know this video is a little bit on the long side, but hopefully you found all the extra details helpful. I also wanted to point out that at the time of finishing the script, I've just passed 700 subscribers, which is about 300 shy of being able to apply for partnership status with YouTube. Regardless of whether or not I actually make that goal, I just wanted to thank you all for the crazy amount of support and positive feedback that the channel's gotten over the last few months since releasing my Pro Strats for Ramp and Glider Tricks video. I really enjoy this game and love not only learning about how it works, but sharing that knowledge with others. So yeah, once again, if you do find the content useful or helpful or entertaining, I'd really appreciate if you dropped a like and a comment, and subscribe and hit the notification bell and all that good stuff. Thanks again, and as always, I will see you in the next video.